from any insurer's perspective, this is going to be a high risk environment. And throwing candy in that kind of high risk environment is really what insurance companies are concerned about.
Back on Closer Look with Michael Friscolanti. I'm Scott Sexsmith. Exciting day yesterday. As we were wrapping the show, we get a note from the boss that the Stanley Cup is in the house.
Yeah, it was crazy.
The Stanley Cup.
The Stanley Cup. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's three of them, right?
They're all replicas, yes, because the original one is in the vault at the old
Hall of Fame,
which is an old bank, right? The
Yes.
Hall of Fame.
Right.
Have you seen it? In
Yes,
the vault?
I have.
It's pretty wild. I
love going there.
It is great because it's literally priceless. How could you put a price on the original Stanley Cup? But the replica was in town.
So is it the replica that gets awarded to the Stanley Cup champ, or is it the original?
No, the original one never comes out.
Never comes out.
No.
So that one that and Derek's going to flash some pictures. You can see them now.
I'm not sure. Was that the one they give on the ice, or is that one of the three? It's one of the.
I'm going with it's the same cup that Wayne Gretzky hoisted that you and I hoised yesterday.
It's the same weight, I'm sure. It's like 40 pounds.
It was heavy.
Yeah. I had a hard time lifting.
I mean, you and I lift, but still, just.
I had a hard time with it. I did. I couldn't find my name anywhere on it.
Lift a fork.
I was looking. I do that a lot. I was looking on my name wasn't anywhere.
But it was so
and now
cool
apparently I'm not going to win it because I touched it.
Well, I didn't like our chances before that.
Those days are not. But it was cool. It was
cool to see the names, the dates.
I'm not going to lie. I don't know the story about how there's some organization bid on it in town.
Yeah, there was a hospital fundraiser, and you had the opportunity to bid on it. And if you were the winning bid, I believe you got the cup for 3 days.
Okay,
which is actually longer than what the players who win it get it for.
You must have really paid some money to bid on that.
Yeah,
it was cool to see. It's amazing how you can be a mature adult, but then something happens when you see the Stanley Cup.
Well, and you saw everybody in the office. They were, like kids in a candy store.
Yes. And all of them now will never win the cup.
Yeah.
So I don't even have aspirations.
Did you like that segue?
Derek didn't touch it, I noticed, because he still is. He knows he still has the skills to pay the bills.
You're ignoring my beautiful segue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Segue. Sorry.
I said everybody in the office when they saw it, they were like kids in a candy store.
Okay. Well, speaking of candy.
No. Tough crowd, folks. Tough crowd.
I know. No, that was a good one. Sorry. Actually, before we get to the candy, which was a great segue.
All right. Thank you.
Let's remind people that we're still asking for contributions about the episode we talked about yesterday for the crowdfunding campaign to get some more freedom of information requests regarding the Ford Government Skills Development Fund. If you missed that episode yesterday, I think it's a must-watch. It kind of explains the great journalism we're doing at Queen's Park. And I can tell you, Scott, the numbers climbing every hour. More and more people are contributing.
Now, I thought I heard somebody in the hall say that we had passed or met that first tier.
I think we're close to the first tier.
Okay, that's great. Keep it coming.
I don't want to lie and give details I don't know of. No. But the point is, as we talked about yesterday, what's really nice too is a lot of people are just saying, hey, keep up the good work. Keep doing this is important work that you're doing. We obviously agree with that, and it's nice to see. So we will keep everybody in the loop about how things are going.
All right, good stuff. Okay, let's get to candy.
Candy.
The sweetest part of the show.
So this was my idea for a podcast episode. So if it's terrible, you blame it on me.
Yes,
but
we will. Both Derek and I.
That's right. That's right. You never say it when I do a good job, but that's fine.
Well, still waiting.
Candy being thrown from parades is a tradition, decades-old tradition. If you go to a Christmas parade or in the States, you go to July 4th parade, you go to Canada Day parade here, people are tossing candy at you.
Showering.
But at this time of year, it often becomes a chatter on social media because most communities have now banned that practice. You cannot throw candy from a float for liability reasons, for public safety reasons.
Yeah.
Sadly, there have been some cases where people are injured, sometimes children.
Right.
In fact, there was a child killed a few years ago in Canada who was getting some candy and was run over by a float. But of course, the other side there, people say, "This is insane. How could you ban this? This is too much bubble wrapping."
Yes.
A little bit.
Where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? So I thought it'd be interesting to talk because it actually made headlines in North Bay too because the North Bay, like every other parade organization, the organizers put out a release reminding people you can't throw candy, and it was a talker. People were talking about it. And when I did a quick search on the old internet, there's all kinds of social media chatter about it all over North America.
It's amazing what you'll find.
Not just in Canada. And it's Christmas parade season.
It is.
So we're going to talk to a personal injury lawyer about sort of what's happening here, how much more it's happened. And you can tell me at the end of the show if this was worthwhile.
I will.
No pressure on our guest.
No pressure. We cover a lot of different issues on this podcast, and if you've been with us from day one, you certainly know that. Some extremely serious, some much lighter. Today's topic could fall on either end of the spectrum, depending on your viewpoint. Should the practice of throwing candy from parade floats be banned? Maybe it's a question you haven't given a lot of thought to, but let us assure you of this. A lot of people have, and as we enter the Christmas parade season, it's become quite a heated debate on a lot of social media threads. So we're going to weigh in on tonight's show, and here to help us understand all of our legal questions is Tudor Gadget, an associate at the personal injury law firm of Oakley Vigmond, which has offices throughout Ontario, including Toronto, Sudbury, and North Bay. And Tudor is joining us from the office in Barrie tonight. Tudor, appreciate your time. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
All right, let's get right into this. Tudor, when I was a kid, parades were literally a rain shower of candy being tossed from floats. But in recent years, most communities and parade organizers have banned that practice. It's an obvious question, but we have to ask it. Why?
I think it's a good question to ask. I think a lot of it has to do with risk and municipalities and parade organizers wanting to manage that risk in light of events that have happened and the potential risk of events and injuries happening in the future. I think we have to consider from an insurance perspective where this is coming from, because any event like this needs insurance, and liability insurance comes with its own set of requirements. With these kinds of parades, you're looking at moving vehicles, floats, large crowds. And from any insurer's perspective, this is going to be a high-risk environment. And throwing candy in that kind of high-risk environment is really what insurance companies are concerned about. And what they're reaching out to municipalities and parade organizers likely is to impose these kinds of requirements to maintain their insurance policy.
So, Tudor, I mean, I've taken my kids, as I know you have, to plenty of parades, and I've never gathered them around the vehicle and said, come on, kids, we're going to a high-risk environment, going to a Santa Claus parade. It sounds like a bit of a tough sell.
Yeah, and you wouldn't normally think about it that way, right? But if we're thinking about the risk of potentially children, for example, running into the path of a float or any kind of moving vehicle to kind of dive for candy or reach for it, maybe a slip or a trip and a fall from again, that running and diving for the candy on the wet or icy pavement. And there have even been cases of people being hit by candy, right? Hit in the eye, something like that, and causing injuries in that sense. So even though the risks can be pretty remote, these are the kinds of things that insurers and municipalities are thinking about. And again, this is all in the context of when is this parade happening, right? You're talking about later in the day. It might be dark out, inclement weather conditions. So all of these things are potentially adding to the risk that these organizers are considering.
That's a great point. And we need to point out, too, that this tragically has happened in cases.
Of course,
We've seen, I believe there was a 4-year-old girl killed a few years ago in a parade in Nova Scotia. Yeah. Last year, I believe a gentleman who was throwing candy in a parade in northern Alberta was killed. And like you said, Tudor, insurance companies are paying attention to this, right? They've seen this. Is there actual case law on this? Like, what would happen in that case? Someone would have to pay somebody, I assume.
Yeah, and I'll just start off by saying, right, anyone can sue anyone for anything, right? And it sounds kind of funny to say that, but it's your responsibility to prove that there was actual damage coming out of what happened with evidence on a balance of probabilities. So you could sue the person who threw the candy. You could sue if the float or vehicle was actually involved. You could sue the driver and the owner of the float, the municipality under a concept that's called occupier's liability, and potentially the organizers of the parade who set it all up, right? So there's potentially complicated liability scenario on all ends. And in Ontario, we have what's called joint and several liability, which isn't the case in a lot of other jurisdictions. But that basically means that if more than one party contributes to your injury, the law allows you to recover 100% of your damages from any of the at-fault parties. And this is basically put in place to protect people in cases where the defendant, who's mostly at fault, doesn't have any money to cover your damages. So at the end of the day, if any or all of those parties are found at fault, they could owe a duty of care to the injured person. And that's why we're seeing more and more of these blanket rules to minimize risk in the context where it might not even be the municipality itself that's at fault, but if they even have 1% liability, they could be found 100%, liable to pay those damages.
That is fascinating. Thank you for that. Do you know, have you ever seen a court judgment where this actually did get to trial, or most of them settled before then?
I haven't personally seen one, but in our experience, upwards of 95, if not 98% of cases settle before trial anyway. So be very likely that it's part of a confidential settlement that neither you or I will never hear about ever again. So,
Tudor, when you say that anyone can sue anybody for anything, and we hear these stories of, people going to fast food restaurants and getting a hot coffee and spilling it on themselves and then crying foul and suing the restaurant because the coffee was indeed hot. And maybe this is an unfair question to ask somebody in your business, certainly who represents plaintiffs for the most part, but is our society a little too litigious?
That's a great question. Obviously, from my perspective, I'd say it's not, only because there are a lot of rules in place actually preventing people from suing. And a lot of folks might not be aware of them. But for example, with motor vehicle insurance, there's something called the deductible on your damages for your pain and suffering. So if you get in a car accident, and your case could go all the way to trial, and a jury could say, let's say they award you $100,000 for your pain and suffering. What they don't know, and what they're actually not allowed to know by law, is that the government takes an extra I think it's around $47,000 off the top of that in the form of a deductible. And so potentially if the jury awards you, for example, $50,000, that could reduce your pain and suffering award to zero.
Right.
And you have no control over that. So I think in terms of litigiousness, I think there is kind of this trend towards, reducing the likelihood, especially of frivolous lawsuits, that we wouldn't see somewhere like the States, for example, where you see awards in the hundreds, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars for pain and suffering alone.
That's a great point. So I think what you're saying is what's happening in these parade issues is municipalities are hearing from their insurers, or parade organizers are hearing from their insurers, and they're saying, look, you need to have these rules in place because we know what's happening now, what's happening with these parades. And if you don't do this, we're just not going to insure you.
Yeah, or we're gonna, jack up your premium to where you're tempted to go with a different insurer anyways.
Yes, that's a good point, right? And that insurance for everything has gone up. The insurance, that's the other concern. That's the other issue too with these, right? And so you could see a Christmas parade organization. These aren't wealthy organizations. They're trying to put on a fun parade for the community. They don't want to triple their insurance costs before the event even starts.
That's right.
We've touched on this as well. I remember reading about that. This has been a story that's actually been a story for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
This kind of bubbles up, and you hear it. I believe the National Post 10 years ago had a lead that said, "Add a new horror to the panoply of dangers from which little Canadians need to be protected: candy canes tossed from slow-moving convertibles." Obviously, their take on it is that this is overkill.
Yeah.
And so even today in 2025, knowing all the things we just talked about, Tudor, what do you say to the person who says, "I still think this is nuts, that this is way too much to be banning candy tossing from a parade"?
Look, I think it's a fair perspective. But the fact is, and this is, has been studied psychologically, we as people are generally not really good at evaluating risk, especially when it comes to things like this. I include myself in that category. I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. No one's perfect. But no one wakes up in the morning thinking, I'm going to get in a car accident today, or some terrible thing is going to happen to me or my children today, right? No one goes to the Santa Claus parade with that thought. Some of us might fall on the other side of that and say, there's only a very remote chance of this happening, so let's not worry about it. Kind of ties back into psychologically, there's this kind of phenomenon called the defensive attribution bias. I'm not sure if either of you are familiar with it, but
go ahead.
People tend to assign less blame to someone whose behavior they could imagine themselves doing. And they assign more blame when they think about, I would never do that. Right. So that's where you get things like, well, if a child's running into the road, that's the parent's fault. Right. It's really not the responsibility of the municipality to control things like that. People who see themselves as cautious, attentive, responsible, they're not going to imagine themselves as making the same mistake or as having their kids be the one who is involved in one of those terrible accidents, right? So I think that it's certainly part of the discussion. I think it's important to consider that. But I think the discussion shouldn't end there because there are so many risks involved.
So what's the best middle ground then, Tudor? Candy distribution, not throwing.
Yeah, I think distribution's a good one. I think it's important to acknowledge the power of, thinking about the good old days when, when everyone was diving for candy and no one was getting hurt. But we can still have that, but just with a different method, different modality, right? So if we're talking about, potentially having people volunteer specifically designated to hand out candy, or having specific areas where kids can pick up candy at certain times. Those are all good alternatives. We'll leave that one to the organizers to figure out how they want to do it. So.
That's a great point. We've seen this trend where most communities have now moved to this. There's still some that haven't. Do you expect that it's inevitable that every community in Ontario will say this is the way we have to go if they're not doing it already?
I don't think so. Not necessarily. I think, again, it's all dependent on what each committee is going to decide and what their insurer is going to require from them. But I think we are, if a terrible accident happens once again that brings everything that we're just talking about to the forefront, I think that would definitely be the case. So.
It's a great point. Before we chatted today, I sent you, when I was doing my Googling, researching this, there was the city of Snyder, Texas. It's a city of 11,000 people. In the summer, sent out a public notice. It's 3 pages, single-spaced, explaining to the community, again, a community of 11,000 people, why we're doing this, why the local parade committee is requesting candy be handed out. And they conclude with this: a moment to reflect. Getting a Tootsie Pop tossed from a float, or knowing that every safety measure was taken, no one got hurt, and every child, every driver, and every spectator went home safe. Which do you prefer? They kind of nailed it, didn't they?
That's right. That's the type of balance we'd like to strike, and we can appreciate these organizers trying to move towards safer alternatives, while not kind of removing the fun and the whole point of going to one of these parades for a lot of the kids. So.
And that's in the wild west of Texas.
Well, yeah, you're in the city of 11,000. I know. Wow. You know what? I love conversations like this. I mean, because this is all over social media this week. I've seen it everywhere. Communities are talking about it. But here, hopefully, we can have a rational conversation about why this happens. Whether you agree with it or not, this is why it's happening.
Tudor, before we let you go, anything that we didn't cover tonight that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to chat about is kind of along the similar lines of what we're talking about in evaluating risk. Something that you might see in the news coming up is the proposed changes to the accident benefits schedule in Ontario. And what's happening is a lot of the benefits that are currently guaranteed, they're minimum benefits that anyone gets with their insurance policy, those are going to become opt-out. So I would encourage anyone to look into those changes. Think about, although the level of risk to yourself might be minimal, you do not want to find yourself in a situation where, for pennies on the dollar of what you're saving in terms of your insurance premium, you're potentially risking not having those benefits if you ever need them. So I just encourage everyone to assess their risk rationally, do all your research before coming to any kind of decision there.
When is that coming into effect?
I believe that's summer of next year.
Okay, so, well, that's a great point. Because I've read a little bit about this. I've heard about it. We're going to have you back on in the springtime, Tudor, and we'll talk about this and go a little more deeper.
That sounds great. Right. Thanks so much, folks.
Good stuff. From Barrie tonight, there's Tudor Gadget. Thanks, Tudor. Appreciate your time.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.
Tudor's absolutely correct. You will never convince 100% of the people 100% of the time.
Yeah, I think that's why I want to make that clear. We're not trying to shove something down people's throats.
No.
I just feel like this is something that people are talking about all over North America. And so let's have a conversation about it. The bottom line is you can see that there's no doubt insurance companies are coming to communities, coming to parade organizers and saying, if you don't have these rules in place, we're either not going to insure you or your rates are going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
Everyone's struggling with rising insurance.
Of course.
There's no way the local Christmas parade is going to say, nope, we're throwing candy and we'll just pay
roll the dice
$10,000 extra. There's no way because who's going to swallow? Ultimately, it's going to be the community that's going to swallow that cost.
Well, and you and I talked about it. All it takes is one. Right? It takes one and the thing's off the rails.
And the thing, we didn't touch on the fact that there was a case in 2010 where a person sued the Toronto Christmas parade because they were hit in the head, hit in the eye with a frozen chocolate bar or something.
Right.
Chocolate bar.
Yes.
And they went blind in the one eye. It was pretty serious, right? So things happen. It's totally rare. And, one of the arguments I've seen, and I think it was in one of the columns somebody wrote, like, the odds are probably higher that someone's going to die in a car accident on the way to the parade.
Sure.
Than actually get hurt at the parade. But the bottom line, Scott, like everything else, comes down to money. Are you going to pay that extra insurance money and let people throw candy, or do you just say, you know what, let's just do it this way? And do you want to be the community where you have that terrible tragedy? And that's the worst possible outcome.
Yeah. But so there you go.
Then look, our job is to talk about things people are talking about.
Helmets,
mission
eye
accomplished.
protection.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Bubble wrap.
That's right. We should all wear helmets and ski goggles to the or we just shouldn't go to the parade. We should just watch it on TV like everything else, right?
Oh, great. Now you're going to get letters, people saying, no, you told them not to come.
You know what? I'm going to
parade.
ask ChatGPT if I should go to the parade.
You are incorrigible.
Yes, sir.
All right. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. What do you think? Should we still be tossing candy at parades? Let us know what you think. Closer look. All right.
Toss us your opinion.
Toss us your opinion. And maybe a Tootsie Roll or two. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. Closerlookpodcast.ca is the website. Check it out. Don't forget crowdfunding through the Trillium. Would still like to get your support. You can do that at the Trillium.ca. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media, Derek Turner, producer of this evening's program, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.